So it asks us to find the matrix equation for the following circuit for the node voltages. So we're going to focus on these points. Let's begin by drawing directions of current. So let's call this I1. Let's call this direction I2. Let's call this direction I3. Let's call this direction I4. Let's call this direction I5. Let's call this direction I6. And let's call this direction I7. So let's start by writing some of the equations down. So V1, for the equation for V1, for node 1, we see 3 amps enters the node, and this will be equal to anything that leaves the node, so it'll be I1 plus I2. For V2, we see I2 enters the node, and we see 1 amp, and I3 leaves the node, but also the V2 node also counts for this as well, because there's no resistors or current source or voltage source blocking the way. So this whole thing is considered the V2 node. So we do plus I7 plus 2 amps. Those are also leaving the node. Now for V3, we see I3 enters the node, and I4 and I5 leave the node. So I3 enters, and this will be equal to I4 plus I5. For V4, we see I5 enter the node, and we see I7 from here, and the 2 amp also enter the node, because this whole thing is considered the V4 node. So I5 plus I7 plus 2 amps. And also we see that this 4 amp here also is entering the node. So we'll do plus 4, and this will be equal to I6. Now let's try and get rid of all the i's we have by finding the equations for them. So let's find the equation for I1. So we see I1, it goes from a high potential, V1, to a low potential, which is the ground node, 0 volts, because this whole thing is the ground node. So it'll be V1 minus 0 all over 10 ohms. Okay? Or just V1 over 0. So all over 10. I2, it'll be V1 high potential to V2 the low potential all over 5. I3 V3 I3 V2 minus V3 high potential to low potential all over 8 ohms. Okay, I4 high potential V3 to low potential 0 all over 4. I5 high potential V3 to low potential V4 all over 8. And I6 high potential V4 to 0 all over 2. And then finally I7 high potential V2, because this whole node is V2, to low potential V4, so minus V4 all over 1. Okay, now we'll just plug all of these into all of these equations. So let's write the equations over here. Okay, so for the first one, it'll be 3 amps is equal to I1 V1 over 10 plus I2 V1 minus V2 over 5. Let's see what's next. Okay, then we have the second one. Okay, so this one's already done. So it'll be I2 V1 minus V2 over 5 equals 1. There's 2 like terms here, 1 plus 2, so that's just 3. So let's have it equal to 3. Plus I3, which is V2 minus V3 over 8, plus I7, which is V2 minus V4. Okay, now yeah, that should be it for this one. So let's do the next one. I3 will be V2 minus V3 over 8 equals I4, which is V3 over 4, plus I5, which is V3 minus V4 over 8. Okay, and now the last one. So I5, that's V3 minus V4 over 8, plus I7, which is V2 minus V4, plus 2 plus 4, so that's just plus 6. And this is all equal to I6, which is V4 over 2. Now let's simplify all of these more. Okay. Let's actually have this 3 be on the other side. So instead of 3 equals V1, 3 equals all of this, let's have it all of this equal 3. It's still the same thing. So V1, okay, so we have V1 over 10 plus V1 over 5 here. And that gives us 0.3 V1. Then we have minus V2 over 5. And that's just minus 0.2 V2. And this is equal to 3. The next one, let's see. Let's bring all of this to the other side. And so it'll be, okay, let's bring all of this to the other side. So V1 over 5, that's minus V1 over 5 because it's on the other side. So it'll be minus V1 over 5, which is minus 0.2 V1. Now we have minus V2 over 5. And then we have, and if you bring it to the other side, it's plus V2 over 5. So plus V2 over 5 plus V2 over 8 plus V2, that's 1.325. Wait, hold on, let me double check that. Yep, correct. Okay. Now we have this one, minus V3 over 8, which is minus 0.125 V3. Then we have just minus V4, so just minus V4. And let's bring this 3 to the other side, okay? So it'll be equal to minus 3. Now, let's bring, for this one, let's bring everything to the other side. So we have V2 over 8, and since we brought it to the other side, it's minus V2 over 8. So it'll just be minus 0.125 V2. And minus V3 over 8, we brought to the other side, so it'll be just positive V3 over 8, plus 1 over 4. So 1 over 8 plus 1 over 4, plus 1 over 8 again because of this one. So plus 1 over 8 again, that gives us 0.5 V3. Okay, so 1 over 8 plus 1 over 8 plus 1 over 4, 0.5 V3. And then now all we have to do work with is minus V4 over 8, which is minus 0.125 V4. And this is all equal to 0. And finally, the last one, we can just bring this to here and bring the 6 to the other side. So first, let's work with V2. There's only one V2, so it'll just be V2. Then we have V3 over 8, which is the only one. So, and that's just 0.125. That's that. Then we have minus V3 over 8, minus V4. And then since we brought this V4 over 2 to the other side, it's minus V4 over 2. So minus V4 over 8, minus V4, minus V4 over 2. And that's minus 1.625 V4. And since we brought the 6 to the other side, it's minus 6. Now we're going to convert this to a matrix. So this is how the matrix will look like. So we put everything of V1, of the V1 category in this section, everything in the V2 category in this section, everything in the V3 category in this section, everything in the V4 category in this section. Then we close the matrix and have it equal to whatever values these are equal to. Okay, so this is what the last row will consist of. So let's start with the first row. That'll be 0.3 minus 0.2 here. This equation doesn't have a v1, so that means v1 will be 0 here. And same with this one, doesn't have a v1, so it'll be 0. Now let's work with the v2s. Minus 0.2, 1.325, minus 0.125, 1 here. Now, the first equation doesn't have a v3, so it'll be just 0. And it's minus 0.125, 0.5, 0.125. The first equation doesn't have a v4, so it'll be 0. Minus 1, minus 0.125, minus 1.625. And all of this will be equal to 3, minus 3, 0, and minus 6. So this is pretty much the answer they just want. They don't want anything else. But if you were to put this through MATLAB, or solve through putting each of them into each other, you would get the following answers. V1 will be equal to 13.8966 volts. V2 will be equal to 5.8449 volts. V3 equals 3.3479 volts. And V4 will be equal to 7.5467 volts. And these will be your final answer.